Okay, thanks. So a few updates for the Vermont Ag Water Quality Partnership. Wanted to let you know that we have a number of priorities that we're focusing on this year. Funding and collaboration is one, navigating funding that's coming. Soil health and research is another. You're going to see that in various ways that we're providing support throughout the partnership. Wanted to let you know that our annual report is coming out very soon. So this is a great resource for anybody working with partners or the community. It's a single page, double-sided, report that has all the statistics for ag water quality reductions in Vermont on the front. And then we have a featured farmer story on the back. We also have a number of talking points that go along with that and other supportive materials, but you'll see that soon. We usually do a press release about it. The Lunch and Learn series, we're probably going to be having a really short 2-part series coming up this month, focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, working with Joshua Allen with NRCS about the resources that NRCS has. And if you're starting to work with the community, some great tools of just knowing how to be in that space and some questions you might be considering while doing that. And then the most exciting update is that we are going to be having our partnership annual meeting in person this year. It's on March 21st in Montpelier at the Vermont College of Fine Arts. We've sent a couple of save the dates in the newsletter. If you're not getting the monthly newsletter, please find me at some point today because that's really important. I'll talk about that in a second. But the annual meeting, our theme is climate resiliency. So we're going to be having Joshua Faulkner come to give an hour-long keynote about considerations for climate change in Vermont. It will feature the recent tile drain data coming out of the Agency of Ag study, as well as a couple of studies that Joshua and Alyssa White of UVM have done about what farmers are doing to prepare for climate change and to increase their climate resiliency in Vermont and New England. And then the rest of the day is really focused on, there'll be some breakouts you can choose from, but about how do we utilize the data we have to implement programs, have really good collaboration, meet our goals. And it's going to be a really rich day. And so the agenda is going to be coming out soon. Registration will be coming out. There'll be instructions within your organization of how to get signed up for that, but we're really excited. And then also on that day, I will say too, accessibility is another theme, and we will be having a panel in the afternoon to talk about how different organizations approach what does underserved mean to each organization, and what are you already doing in this space, or what questions are your organizations asking themselves, and what direction do you think it'll be going? And so we have a number of different partners that will be some Vermont Ag Water Quality Partnership partners and some other organizational partners who will be plugging into that. I think it's going to be really interesting and maybe a topic we don't always get to talk about. And then my friendly reminder is that the newsletter is your friend. Please take the time to read it. We have been trying to make some updates to it so you can pull out some information really easily. So at the top, there's a bulleted list of all of the meetings that we know of that are coming up and the contacts for those if you have questions, funding opportunities and deadlines that are coming up, employment opportunities, quick links for partnership information for like the Lake Champlain Basin Science blog. If there are new staff, the partnership has this really robust orientation program. It's a self-guided program that is really useful. So we have that on there as well. But if you have new staff, please get in touch with me because we'd love to welcome them, get them those resources, and get them on our listserv. I think that's everything. Thank you. Okay.
Hi there, Holly McClintock with the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. So just a couple things. First of all, we are still looking for a clean water program director. We have been unsuccessful with this for a very long time now, maybe 6 months. We even changed it from a manager position to a director position. So if that interests anyone that you know more, please visit our website and look at that job description. That person will be working on our role as a clean water service provider in the Memphremagog Basin. So please pass around that if anyone is looking. In relation to the Farm and Forest Viability Program's water quality grants for fiscal year 2023, applications closed January 27th. We are beginning our internal reviews for that, and decisions should be made in April. So if you have a producer who applied for that grant, you can let them know. Otherwise, it has been very busy internally. We have our ASEP, AL, and our CS deadline coming up on February 10th. So we have been preparing for that, receiving a lot of pre-applications for easements and preparing for the March board meeting. And that's fun because 2 of our 3 farms are up here in Franklin County. So that's been fun. And let's see, anything else? We have been working on a payment for ecosystem services pilot program, and we presented that research to the legislature in January. So there should be some fun stuff coming out related to a new potential grant program. So be on the lookout for that. And I believe that is everything critical right now. So any questions about any of that, let me know. Sure.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Ivy Krasinski. I work for UVM Extension, representing the Northwest Crops and Soils team. So the first thing I'll share is our conference and events. We have a lot of in-person and virtual events in February and in March. I have a pile of flyers if anyone wants a paper copy to put up, but I will highlight some of those. We have a dry bean webinar coming up, as well as our virtual hemp conference. The no-till and cover crop conference is in person this year, and that's March 2nd. We also have the Organic Dairy Producers Conference that's also in person down at VTC, and a grain producer webinar series coming up at the end of March. All of this information is on our website as well, so feel free to look there. We're also in the midst of nutrient management planning classes right now, so I see some of you every Wednesday here in St. Albans, but so we have that going on. And what else? Lindsay wanted me to share with you all that for custom applicator certification exams, right now we have 27 people signed up for those, and she just ran an exam yesterday. But if you're interested and want to be part of the listserv and you're not, email Lindsay and she can get you set up with that. She's running some of the exams, I think, throughout February. And yesterday, Lauren asked about the DVIC cohort project. So that's a project that Heather, Jeff Sanders, and Sarah Ziegler are working on from our team. Do you want me to share about that now? Okay. So I was picking their brains yesterday about this project, but so last March, they were awarded a 20-month grant through the DBIC, the Northeast Dairy Business Innovation Center. And with that grant, the main focus was increasing quality forage production on farms in Vermont and New York. And so they wanted to start looking at how they can help farms increase their forage production and increase the quality of that forage, so that they can reduce the grain that they're having to import onto their farms, and then indirectly reduce like the nutrients that they have to import to their farms. So with that project, back in March, they sought out a diversity of farmers to work with. So they ended up getting 11 farms, and they ranged from small farms all the way to LFOs. And also with a wide range of production systems, so conventional, organic, and organic grass-fed. And so what they realized was that all the farms can benefit from improving their forage quality, but the key is really to looking at the whole farm and farm specifically, because each farm is going to have different needs. and identify what the farm needs to make those improvements, and then getting the funding to do those improvements. So I mentioned it was Jeff, Heather, and Sarah from our team, but also they were going to work with animal nutritionists, grazing experts, and agronomists. So they have Sarah Flack, who I think a lot of you know, working with them, as well as Patrice Vincent, who's an agronomist and nutritionist from Quebec, and also Kurt Kotanch, who's a dairy nutritionist consultant, and he specializes in forage quality and rumen function. So this cohort, along with their farmers, they developed a whole farm forage plan specific to that farm. And so that plan is going to help them address some of the big challenges to adopting better quality forage production. And so they're not here today. They're applying for the DBIC grants that are due today to get those farmers the funding for specifically, they mentioned feed storage improvements was the big thing that farmers mentioned lacking the funds for. So improving feed storage so that the feed storage is important because if you have inadequate feed storage, it's going to reduce the quality of the feed, which is then going to result in the farms having to buy more grain. So they're trying to indirectly improve forage quality through feed storage. Last week, they were also working with farmers for the VHCB grants to also get funding for the feed storage improvements. And then Heather's applying for one of the DBIC grants so that we can provide technical assistance and purchase equipment to help the farms address these issues. So if you have any questions, I would address Jeff or Sarah or Heather, but it is a very interesting project and there's a lot of farmer interest in this, and the farmers really do want to make these improvements. So Jeff and Sarah have been really trying to get those farmers applying for these grants so that they can do it. And I think that's all that I have.
How do I get up here? Okay. All right. Do you guys want to do an update or do you want to just do your presentation? That sounds great. VACD, so Allie or Meryl or Molly, I guess. It's VACD's turn. Whoever wants to do that. Yeah. Right.
About the white noise. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me all right? All right. I'm Ryan Crean. I'm with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm here on behalf of Chris Smith, my supervisor, who is detailing into his supervisor's position, which shifts me along to his spot. So just to give a few updates, I just want to start with a question. This cold weather's been great for clearing out. You do like wood duck nesting boxes this time of year because you can get out when things are frozen. So often eggs don't hatch. People don't realize that, and so we have to clean those out each year. Does anyone know what a hazard is of taking those eggs that did not hatch out of a box this time of year? Anybody experience this? If somebody asks you to help, just remember, those eggs sometimes explode, and it's kind of gross. So just keep that in mind. It's a little, I figure I can give you a little wildlife trivia. So yeah, they're quite loud and kind of don't smell good. Anyways, some of the stuff we're working on right now, our work in the partners program, we're focused on, Katie Kane is mostly working on planning for spring planting projects, partnership with Trek program and other partners. I'm focused more on doing design work for wetland restoration programs. We do have one coming up in Franklin County and Fairfield that we plan to go to construction this summer to do the earthwork on that one. And we completed our largest project down in Addison County this last fall, the earthwork for that. So that was a 320-acre project. So lots more work to do on that front. Luckily, we are in the process of hiring a couple of seasonals to help with stewardship for both those wetland and riparian projects, as far as particularly focus on invasive control and helping out newly planted kind of riparian buffers. Other stuff that we're also looking at right now is, as you all know, the Farm Bill is coming up. The Farm Bill expires at the end of September. So us at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, we have a national team that's working on basically recommendations to USDA as to how that program can support some of our fish and wildlife concerns. So we're just finishing up that. So to go through our, to get that to USDA as they start doing hearings in Congress for that. So I think that is all I have for that. Thanks.
Hello, Karen Bates from the Agency of Natural or DEC. And so, but in the room with me is Stacy Pomeroy from Rivers Program, Watershed Management Division, Marley Roop from my division, and Clarice Cutler, who is, what division? You're in Watershed Management Division, right? And if you have any questions about our newly released VAWQP permit, please see Clarice. Marley will talk after me about the RCPP permit. So I guess a lot of you know me as the watershed planner for the Missisquoi Basin, and I'm also now a the watershed planner for the Lamoille. So I sort of pull together this entire group, don't I? Which is great. The development of the plan, the Missisquoi plan, you probably remember, was completed in last year. So we have a plan we're working on. And I'm in close contact with the Franklin County Natural Resource Conservation District, as well as the other watershed partners, to address those strategies that are associated with agricultural land. I am the person to come to if you have just general questions or concerns about water quality issues in the watershed, and to help identify, areas that we might want to focus on. And I think the only other thing is that you've probably heard something about the clean water service providers. It's another funding source that we have in this county, but more for natural resource restoration when it comes to agricultural areas. They will be releasing, I think they've released RFPs for applications. Just another funding source, another group to understand, to know about if you are looking to fund projects. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think we also have representatives here as well. So we can have that as a topic at any point in time then. And I think that's about it. The Lamoille Basin planning process isn't going to happen for a while because, that was completed as well. So those plans are worth looking at. Just Google Lamoille watershed Vermont, and I bet you find it.
Very, very brief. Regional Conservation Partnership Program. Most of you have heard that acronym, RCPP. I just want to take this opportunity to very publicly and intensely, sincerely thank the NRCS and VACD staff who have been helping with that program. It has been insane. There's no other word for it. We hoped we'd get 50, 60 applications. We got 220, which is wonderful, but it's more than we can handle right now. And so I'm so grateful to, especially the NRCS folks, Travis and Sarah, especially, who have been taking the time to explain so much of this to me that I don't know. It's a very steep learning curve. But the important thing that comes out of this is that there's a need. There's an enormous need here. We were specifically doing outreach to smaller farms to try and get them to try new practices and different things. And especially to reach forest landowners that felt like they weren't getting the opportunities under NRCS. This enormous sign up is indicative of the need that's out there and the need for us to continue to do this, and especially the need for us to figure out how to have the capacity to do this. And that's the boots on the ground, as well as people putting stuff into computers and everything else. So I think we all need to have a larger conversation about how we're going to make that happen. There's going to be so much money coming in the next couple of years, as there already is through things like the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, the bill and the IRA and the IJA and whatever acronym you want to use. So we're going to have to figure out how to manage it all. But we all want to get what we can out there for the landowners. So look forward to working with you on it. And thank you, NRC.
Yes.
You can introduce them. Sorry. Brittany Cole, I work on the regulatory side of the Agency of Agriculture. I have a couple updates. I've updated the LFO large farm page with all of our current information. Any questions about permitting, annual reporting, the program in general? A lot of good information there now. And as always, reach out to me with further questions. We have a non-sewage waste program now. It is generating, or it is regulating the generator or the hauler of non-sewage waste imports to farms. And so how the farms get pulled in with a review is that the generator or hauler, like Casella or someone like that, will submit an application to the agency. They have to identify farms that can take that waste, and then we check to make sure those farms have the storage requirements and the land-based requirements. So it still is kind of regulating the farm to a degree. Jessa Mason was previously an inspector. She's now the statewide person for non-sewage waste program. You'll see more of that coming out. It's going to come online here at the end of February. So reach out with questions on that. We are hiring 2 new inspectors. They're going to be, there might be a little bit of a shift in territories. So, you know, we're trying to keep it consistent, but things are always evolving. And so we will have probably some territorial shifts with the 2 new people coming on. I want to also put a reminder out there that all of our inspection reports and our enforcement actions, they're all public record. It could be a resource to folks that are doing planning work with farms, like NRCS folks or district folks, to just kind of see what the agency has identified as a resource concern on the farm, or what might be an enforcement action already, just to help folks get some of that stuff checked off. That's just a friendly reminder that it is there. Just email anyone in the agency on the regulatory side, and you can get those documents quite easily. The TSP certification program that have been in limbo. This might be our year. It's tied to the REP update. So we're hoping that if the REPs get pushed through this year, then the TSP program will come live, and that regulates the technical service providers that are not the district folks, but the, you know, agriculture consulting services and farm compliance services, like those outside TSPs that are writing nutrient management plans for farms. They now are going to get regulated by the agency as well, me. And so more to come on that program. It's still in development, but it will essentially be auditing all farm size NMPs that are written by those TSPs for compliance with 590, and making sure that all farms are getting a consistent product that they can actually use. I've been working really closely with Tom Aiken from NRCS so that I can have a regulatory lens on the 590 to keep it realistic. So that's been a great collaboration. Anything else from inspectors? Great. Engineering? All right.
I can say something about that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Hey everyone, I'm Greg Haney with the Agency of Ag's Water Quality Programs team. So we are the voluntary side of the Agency of Ag. And we do have a new staff person, a new American member. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
So I'm Noah Overflower, brand new water quality coordinator with water quality.
I'm Annika. I'm the co-American.
So I don't have too much for updates from our side of the agency today, but we did just complete our annual reporting process where we kind of summarize all the work that the Agency of Ag and our partners. We also collect information from RCS and report the phosphorus reductions that have been created by those practices that they do. And we have reformatted our annual reports to be now in the form of a Power BI. A lot of work went into that. And so now it is a very interactive report that you can flip through our website and see, the breakdown of work that has happened in different counties and different watersheds, how much funding from different programs has gone into those areas, as well as the measured phosphorus reductions from those practices. And that it's not just a report for this year, but stretches all the way back to 2016 or 2017. So you can see, the increase in practices or how that has changed over time. So you can go, you can find, I can either send a link out to Lauren later, but if you just look up, Vermont Agency of Agriculture annual report, you'll see a whole page that will take you to that Power BI. It's really cool, really worth checking out. And I'll just say, for some of our other programs, we're kind of in the middle of reporting from work that happened in 2022. So if you do go to Power BI, one thing to keep in mind is that all the work that happened in 2022 has not yet been fully reported out. It's really not until the end, until the summer, really when that information is going to be totally up to date. Also, I'll just say about the program that I manage at the Agency of Ag. Is the Vermont Pay for Performance program. And I just want to thank the Conservation District and Sarah as well. We are getting very close to wrapping up kind of the first year of enrollment in that program. We currently have about 50 farms actively participating in that program. And we just completed applications for the second year. So come in March, we will have kind of completed our whole data updating process. And so for those of you that don't know, the Pay for Performance program is funded by a USDA RCPP AFA grant. It's a pilot program that's going to run for the next 4 or 5 field seasons. And the goal of the program is to have farmers use an online web application called Farm Prep, the Farm Phosphorus Reduction Planner, to enter in all their fields, their soil data, and their farm management information, which then actually models phosphorus loss on a field by field basis. And we compare their current phosphorus losses to what would have been estimated to happen on their farm compared to the assumptions that go into the Lake Champlain total maximum daily load. So we're really kind of scoring each farm against these expectations that were set from them from the TMDL and kind of this benchmark for water quality in terms of phosphorus loss that each farm is trying to meet. So it's a really cool way to provide that information to farmers to show them the good work that they're doing and all the phosphorus that they've kept in the soil as opposed to our waterways through their practices, and also is a new way to compensate farmers for that work in terms of actual pounds of phosphorus. So, and thank you again to Lauren and the rest of the folks at the Franklin County Conservation District, because I think come in 2023 there will be more farms in Franklin County participating in that program than anywhere else out in the state. And it's because Lauren's been such a big supporter of the program. So thank you. So if you have any more questions about that, please reach out to me. It's a cool new program, and we'll have a lot more information and like data to share out from this first year once we've completed our first year of enrollment. So, and thank you to NRCS as well for funding the project. So thank you.
Who are you?
Who am I? I am Stacy Pomeroy. I am a river scientist with DEC's Rivers program. Some of you may have heard of the new Act 135 surface water withdrawal registration and reporting. So this is a new requirement for folks who are withdrawing water from our rivers at a significant amount in order to report that removal so that we can start tracking this throughout the state to what levels water withdrawal is happening. This reporting needs to start January 1st. And for Agency of Ag folks, really it's surface water withdrawals for irrigating farms and livestock watering and other uses on farms are required to report to the Vermont Agency of Ag. So this is really more of an awareness for you folks that if you're working with farms who do have water withdrawals as part of their farming practices, that they may need to report under this new requirement to the Agency of Ag about their water withdrawal amounts. So check out Act 135. You can also find it on Vermont's Rivers Stream Flow page, or I can send a link to Lauren and we can get it out to folks. But if you work with farmers who are doing water withdrawals, it may be something that they're going to need to be reporting on. So this is just more of a heads up for folks because it is new and it just started in January. That's all.
Hi, everybody. I think you know who I am. Sarah, District Conservationist, Northwest Zone. To start off, we have a couple of new employees in the zone. Sean Pease is the new soil conservationist in Morrisville office. Joan Hernandez is new soil con in the St. Albans office. We did lose our program assistant, Liza Lemieux, so that position hopefully will be advertised soon. And we are also in dire need of engineers. We have advertised an engineer and an engineer technician multiple times with little luck. So if you know any engineers out there or have any contacts to engineering schools or anything to do with engineering, feel free to let me know so we can try to recruit some people for those positions. We will be onboarding a couple of new, what we call 401 planners, hopefully soon as well in the St. Albans office. And then hopefully we will stay for a while. Currently, we're working on EQIP and CSP, planning, assessing, and ranking. And to follow that is RCPP. It has a little bit different timelines than EQIP and CSP. What else? We have a new state conservationist, Travis Thomason. And we're just planning and working. We do have a new sort of workload, a little unexpected. NRCS is the technical assistance for an FSA program called Emergency Conservation Program, ECP. With the Storm Elliott, a lot of sugar bushes received some wind damage. Currently in Franklin County, we have, I believe, about 80 people that have either been spoken to or reached out to FSA with damage. So we are doing those visits. We onboarded a new forester, Chris Evans. He's not here today, but he also sits in the Morrisville office. He has primarily been doing those visits. And I'm sure Lori will talk a little bit more about that. Besides that, we're just trudging along, reaching out to our landowners, seeing what needs to be done out in the land and assisting where we can. I guess my biggest thing is I want to hear from you guys. What do you want to know? What are your questions for me? Yes, Travis.
What can you tell me about the Emission Reduction Act? What that's going to be?
Well, what I do know is that we will be getting some additional monies through the IRA program. We will likely have a specific IRA EQIP and IRA CSP yet to be announced, but additional funding that will be pumped into the states. What that looks like exactly, I don't exactly know. Hopefully my state conservationist is on it and figuring that out so they can trickle down the information to the field, but that will open up additional funding potential for landowners that maybe missed the round for regular EQIP. It might look a lot like regular EQIP and CSP, but there might be a little bit other things tagged along with that as well. Brittany? A 401, the official title is Natural Resource Specialist. So the agency as a whole has had some difficulties hiring 457s, which is your soil conservationist position, due to educational requirements. So they're shifting a little bit to try to pull in folks that are well qualified to do the planner position, but just under a different series where the educational requirements are a little bit different.
This specific is the 457 requires soil courses. 401 requires it. We're trying to do it.
Why, you want to come back to us? Dylan, engineer, full time? Maybe if we can get you a bonus. Yes.
I almost thought about talking about this, but I was the payment for ecosystem services. I know that they just submitted a report, kind of about their findings and about what their recommendation is for a payment for ecosystem program. But from my understanding, it's going to be kind of a CSP plus type program where the agency of ag is going to provide a kind of a sign-on incentive payments to farms to get them into CSP. I'm wondering if you or Travis want to talk about that at all.
I was gonna say, you basically said what I know, so I'm gonna defer to Travis. Maybe he knows additional.
Marley's a really good friend. Hi, Travis. So great question. There will be about $1 million available through a pilot program through the Agency of Ag. That is, I can't remember the specific name. It's Vermont Environmental Stewardship something.
Yeah, it's the payment for ecosystem services.
Yeah, so it has a new name, but it is CSP plus. So essentially what the agency is looking to do with $1 million roughly is to provide essentially if a producer walks through the door and they sign up for CSP and they go through the assessment portion of CSP, they can get a payment. I'm not going to share with you numbers. It's over $1,000, right? And so a producer could get a payment to go through the assessment portion of CSP. And then once the producer signs a contract for CSP, they'll get an additional payment, and then they'll, on the backside of that, for their annual payments, the agency will bring money to the table. So it could potentially be significant for some producers. We recognize CSP hasn't been super popular within, Vermont NRCS, and that has impacted our ability to secure additional funds through equip and whatnot. So it's my job to make sure we're doing more CSP. It was Marley's idea, not mine. No, just kidding. But we're super excited about it because I think it'll help bring people through the door and just understand a little bit more about CSP. And it really is just another tool in the toolbox to help producers kind of get, put more conservation on the ground. So more information to come. It's the Agency of Ag's program, but we're super excited. We'll get a training for all the staff, district NRCS, Agency of Ag staff, once we're ready to go, but we're pretty excited about it.
Has this been rolled out, or will it be rolled out for current CSP this year?
So super good question. So I think the agency has to spend money by sometime this year. So likely what will happen is, and by the way, the CSP funds, CSP plus funds will focus on ag lands. plantings. It won't be for forest plantings. So this pilot program is just strictly for ag CSP. So likely what will happen, Sean, is we will somehow figure out how to roll in an IRA CSP along with this payment for ecosystem services CSP plus. Ryan and I have a lot of work to do from that perspective, but we'll get you the information and let producers know. And by the way, a producer could walk in and just sign up for CSP, go through the assessment side of it, look at the payment they get from NRCS and say no thank you, but then go to the agency and get a $1,500 payment just to go through the process. So it's not all or nothing. It's like, hey, just step in the door, go through the process, and yeah, we're pretty excited about it. So yeah,
Thanks,
any other
Travis.
questions? Awesome.
Any other questions for me? All right, thanks, everybody. You know how to reach me.
Hey, everyone. So I'm going to give the VACD update. Typically, Emily Newmar, our ag programs manager, gives this update, but she just gave birth, so she's not here today. So sorry, we just kind of threw this together really quick. So kind of a few things that are going on. VACD and the districts are sort of heavily involved in the legislative process this year. We are giving testimony and putting an ask out to increase our core base funding. We had some success last year, which was amazing and very much needed. And thank you for all that sort of supported us throughout that process. We are going back this year with a bigger ask, and fingers crossed that we get that. I know it's very much needed, so all the districts can continue the great work that they're doing. And there is, we are asking for sign-ons for support. So you may be hearing from districts over the next month if you can sign something to show your support for us. You will likely be hearing that we have a lot of transition happening right now as far from on the district end, a lot of new staff coming on and some current staff who are leaving. Winooski and Ottauquechee conservation districts are currently hiring district managers. Caledonia County Conservation District is hiring an ag specialist. There are some new staff in the room, which I think Lauren and Peter will introduce. And then VACD is currently in the process of hiring a GIS technician, and a new program assistant just started in the Brattleboro office. So all good stuff. We're sad to be losing some folks, but always happy to welcome new ones on. Districts are currently in the process of supporting farmers for the nutrient management planning classes. So it's been a busy couple of weeks on that end. And we on February 22nd, VACD is hosting a webinar along with Audubon and Vermont Fish and Wildlife. And it's a training that will highlight the key organisms that rely on riparian ecosystems like the eastern brook trout, describe their habitat requirements, and review best management practices for tree plantings and restoration. So if something that interests you, please reach out to us. I think it's on the calendar, but still sort of solidifying the agenda and getting a Zoom link out there. Oh, and next week we'll be sort of doing a hard launch of our annual report. So this highlights the VACD and Conservation District work over fiscal year 22. So we're sort of doing a hard launch and an internal meeting next week, and then we'll be starting to share it more publicly. So look out for that. A lot of great work was done and a lot of great stories are featured in that. So we're very excited to share.
Quick note, I think the DEC clean water performance report also came out. It's a good read. The executive summary is 4 pages and has some nice pictures on it. Excuse me, I have the same cold that everyone else has, but it's not COVID, promise. So Lauren Weston, Franklin County Natural Resources Conservation District, she, her pronouns. Just want to do a quick, we have an awesome staff and I'm really excited about them. You guys have met Katie and Kate before, but Katie, raise your hand, and Kate, they are different people. They're both Catherine on your email address. And then we actually have a new staff, Mel Offerdew, who's taking notes for us today. We are very excited to have her. She started last week. I'm still working on the NRCS computer side of things, but we'll get there. So very excited to be a full team of 4 again. We lost Megan in November. We're excited to have onboarded Mel. As everybody said, we're all busy. We're actually working with Heather Darby's team at the Northwest Crops and Soils program on 2 tandem soil health projects. One is going to recruit some farmers to be in soil health cohorts with a bunch of staff to kind of create soil health plans loosely based on the NRCS plans with some feedback from Tom about what to include and what you don't need to include. And hoping to have some farmers try some new things. So that's really exciting. And also just learn more about how to assess their own soil health. And then Katie is also taking the lead on creating a curriculum for all of us to be able to talk more intelligently about soil health to our farmers, especially folks who maybe are not at the NRCS and don't get the same training, or who provide technical services, maybe don't have an agronomy background like myself. So thanks for doing that, Katie. There will be classes. It's gonna be a 12-part webinar series next winter and 5 field days. So hoping many of you can participate. We're working with farms on their pay for phosphorus applications and existing data entry. We're working on new NMPs of the class and old NMPs getting updated that maybe haven't been updated in a while. So that's been fun. We've been working a lot around Lake Carmi on the natural resources there. So you might see us if you're out there. We've got the tree sale coming up. Maybe you drove in through town on Main Street and saw the banner over 7th Street. Maybe you didn't, but maybe you did. There's a really great banner. So if you need trees, or if you know anybody who needs trees, our tree sale is open. I think Peters is probably opening soon. And Molly's actually doing a pickup in Grand Isle County this year for our tree sale. So that's exciting. We're planting 12 acres of trees this spring. So if you want to come plant a tree, let us know, because we could probably use the help. 2 on farms and 1 at the Missisquoi National Wildlife Refuge, actually. So that one would be really pretty. We've got a feasibility study going for another dam removal. So you'll hear about that, I'm sure, many times. We've got a lot of events coming up that I'm going to show in a second. I'll just show it. Sarah, people can see you. How do I change the slide on this? There we go. There's some of the upcoming events that I thought of off the top of my brain the other day. My staff doesn't know this yet. We're co-hosting an agroforestry webinar with Juan Alves from UVM and the White River Conservation District and the Vermont Healthy Soils Coalition. Those will be on February 24th and March 3rd. Details are not out yet. That's not the right date for the no-till conference. That should be March 2nd. That should be March 2nd. I saw on the NRCS training calendar that there's a bedded pack training at the Train Your Family Farm. So I'm gonna go to that. And the VAWQP annual meeting, is that the right date? Okay. We're gonna host a really cool willow bioengineering workshop at the Paul Lynn Dairy if anybody wants to come. Details are also not available, but it's gonna be that day. Our next local led meeting, so our local led conservation meetings that I think most people know about, but they're trying to gather community input on what we should be focusing our work on in various ways, is going to be April 11th in Grand Isle County. And so that's again for all of the Northwest zone, so Lamoille, Franklin, and Grand Isle County. We're doing a bunch of cool bio blitzes and events across Eastern Franklin County with conservation districts out there coming up. Including a bio blitz in Richford and a fishing festival in Enosburg, which will be really interesting. We got the tree sale pickup, and don't forget about Dairy Days in Eansburg. We're officially going to table there this year, so that's really exciting. We're also might be hosting a precision ag event with Scott Magnan, so keep an eye out for that. Katie, do you want to come talk about CCC? Thanks. And there's this really cool new idea that like you guys should just all know about. Nothing to do about it yet, but it's a really cool idea that Katie's been participating in.
There's some action items. So as if Lauren didn't tell you about enough things that we're up to, I've also been working with a group of folks who are working to establish a brand new Civilian Conservation Corps of Northwest Vermont. So it's going to be a new youth conservation corps similar to VYCC. It's actually founded by the guy who founded VYCC. So it's not intended to be in competition with that organization, but complementary, and recognizing that Vermont Youth Conservation Corps typically doesn't get a lot of youth from Franklin and Grand Isle counties. But obviously any of you who are involved in doing on the ground conservation work know that we need more hands out here. So this is an attempt to get young people involved in these conservation projects, build capacity for everyone to get projects on the ground, and offer young people career experience in the conservation and climate spaces. Everything is really far away from like having young people to do that work at this point. We're really working right now on the funding side of things, but the funding model is very cool. It's going to be funded by a thrift and liquidation store. It's going to be in St. Albans. I think been looking both at the old Staples store on Route 7 and also that like weird empty building on Lake Street, kind of by where all of the NRCS people park their cars on Market Street across the street from One Federal. I would love to see a thrift store go there because it's empty and sad right now. That we're looking at a targeted opening date of sometime this summer or fall. So definitely keep your eyes out for that. So for now, what we're doing is building some hype, building awareness in the community of this project. And on that note, we're looking for people to serve as strategic advisors. So if you're interested in that, basically the commitment is you receive a couple of emails, probably like a quarterly update. We might ask you to give feedback on ideas or documents or things like that. And then really your job is to just tell people in the community that this new thing is going to exist, like tell people to go shop at the thrift store, tell people about the Conservation Corps. And so if you think that you might be interested in being a strategic advisor, come find me at some point and I will put you on our list. I've been told there's also a Facebook page to tell people to like, but I haven't logged onto Facebook in years, so I don't know. I don't like it yet, but I will figure that out and let you know more about that. But come find us on Facebook. That is supposed to be where the updates will go, or tell me that you want to be a strategic advisor.
Terrifying chart of practices from NRCS. So I'm going to quickly transition everyone. Molly and Peter are still going to come do their chat, but we're kind of collectively as conservation districts and NRCS thinking through a local led funding pool for our area coming up. So it'd be a separate pool of money within NRCS where we could prioritize the needs of our communities based on feedback we've gotten from both farmers and landowners and land stewards, and also from the NRCS staff and everybody else and all of you. And so these are all of the options of the practices that we in theory could put money towards in a special pool. I'm going to let Molly and Peter speak to what they're thinking about for their county, but maybe we'll do some kind of cool collaboration thing. But some just a point of conversation. So it's going to be like 45 minutes after this of just talking amongst yourselves. And one thing I think I would like to get out of that, if it's of interest, is kind of what practices really in Franklin County need to be funded higher to get more done on the ground. So our ideas are kind of in three categories in Franklin County. to increase biodiversity and planting. So that's pollinator plantings and just in general, trees and shrubs on farms. Trails and crossings, so improving forest trails for maple producers and other forest managers, and stream crossings. If you know me, I have a little bit of a thing about stream crossings. I'd love to see more money go to forests and ag land stream crossings. And then improved perennial ground. I know some of what Heather's DBIC cohort has been doing, and that's kind of inspiring other farmers, is to really improve their pasture and haylands. And I spelled seeding wrong apparently, so apologies. This is an edit mode, so I can just fix that. Through the pasture and hayland plantings, and then also soil amendments with ash and lime. I think we're seeing a lot of nutrient management plans suggesting lime for many fields that we work with. So just trying to make sure farmers know that they can get funding for that, and that it would be in theory less competitive than the statewide pool for our neck of the woods. So that's what I got for Franklin County. Yes, Marla. I haven't, but that's because I'm not familiar with it yet. So I need a soil health training. But no, we haven't discussed it, but sounds like we should.
Tom at NRCS, he's been looking at some numbers on this piece of the magnesium calcium saturation level.
Sure.
If it's more than a certain percentage, it is extremely high. That can really have a major effect on how the soil particles retain the phosphorus or release it. And gypsum can help change that saturation balance.
Because gypsum does the opposite of lime, right?
Sorry?
Gypsum does the opposite of lime. It makes it more.
No, I can totally get it.
Okay. That's fine. I think Sarah Flack once told me it does the opposite, so we're blaming her if that's wrong.
But he's very excited about.
Okay.
There is an NRCS practice.
Well, and yeah, so this is like what we've been kind of noodling on based on some feedback, but if you guys have other things that you're seeing on the ground that really need to be funded more, you guys are the ones seeing what is and isn't being funded, so that would be great to get your feedback also. I'm trying to see if you have any thoughts. And Peter, I'm gonna bring you back to the fun slide.
You want me to our update, or do you want me to go into local? I mean, what do you want me to do? Well, okay, so I'll do our update first.
Yes.
All right. So I brought a book, so I'll try to paraphrase. So first, staffing wise, we're now up to 3 full-time employees who are just me full-time, and then we had 2 part-time. So Emma Sandman, who's relatively new. I think if you haven't met her, she's our new ag outreach specialist since fall. And then Emily Porter Goff is our education outreach coordinator, who cannot be here today. She's sick. So, but I will update you all about everyone's programs. So I'll sort of put it into groups. Our lake work, we did 2 lake-wise, or not 2 lake-wise, I'm sorry, 2 lake watershed action plans. So Lake Elmore and Lake Eden, we have about 2 projects that are being completed right now. We're in the midst of it. Not at this very second, but we started in the fall, we'll finish them in the spring, and then we have 5 more in the works and then 4 more in development. And this work is anywhere from stormwater work to lakeshore BMP work to forestry EMP work to roads, erosion, culvert replacements to stream restoration work. So it's pretty broad. And so we're right in the midst of implementing the work that came out of Lake Action Watershed plans. River and AOP work. We have a 1 culvert replacement that's 100% design. It's waiting in the wings. We're hoping that we can get it done by FY24, if not this year. We have 1 dam removal that's a 30% design that's been there for about 5 years. And we're hoping eventually to bring it to the next stage. Trees for Streams project. We have 3 trees for streams. Woody buffer plantings that 2 of them are at least being matched by U.S. Fish and Wildlife and Vermont Fish and Wildlife funds for a total of like about 12 to 13 acres. That will happen in the spring and fall of next year. What else? We have a floodplain wetland design preliminary design in progress, rather large, as well as an in-stream restoration project that's in design phase as well. Stormwater, numerous stormwater master plans, Johnson, Hyde Park, Morrisville, and now Stowe. We have at least 2 large projects being implemented this spring, and then numerous ones in development at various stages. For our ag work, we are planning on a no-till drill workshop soon. I'll let you know when that's going to occur. It could be a 2-stage workshop. We're following up on a farm where we did a river corridor easement with a land trust and a wetland easement, and there's plenty of work that could be done in stream restoration as well as culvert replacement there. So we're working on that this year. Emma's doing a nutrient management plan with one farm in Lamoille County, and then she's working hard on getting her land treatment planning and soil conservation planning training going as well. So it's great to update that. Oh yes, I've almost forgot. So some of you may or may not know, I'm a chair of the VAWQP Basin Water Quality Council in Lamoille. And the Lamoille QUISP, Clean Water Service Providers, just released their clean water funding RFP. So if you didn't know that, it was released a couple of days ago. And so clean water projects are finally going to be on the board for people to put in some applications for due, I think, March 4th, something like that. Yeah, it's too soon. I mean, it's not a lot of money. It's the first year. It's just a half-year amount of funding. We're going to see how many people applied, how many of these projects are going to be worthy of the funding, but I'm sure it's going to go quick, especially with stormwater projects. They're pretty expensive, so we'll see. Some of my favorite news to announce is our nature center is in constant development. So our nature center, Emily Porter Goff is running. She and I have worked to raise money, both from the state. We got appropriations, capital appropriations from the state last year, to help toward educational curriculum materials for the center, as well as a new pavilion. So there'll be a new pavilion that will be built. Hopefully, well, it has to be built this spring because we got to use that money. And we do have our quotes. We need to raise a little bit more money. We got another anonymous donation of $6,000 towards that as well. And so this pavilion will be a place that will be set right where we usually have our camps, right where our teepee is. So I don't know if you're familiar with our camp at all, but it will be a place where we can have meetings, conventions with the partners to come up to. We do have a solar power generator that we just purchased that will help with electricity, but we're going to ask for more funds this year for solar panels for it. And it'll have a back wall, which can also have a place where we can have meetings in our projected screens and musical performances or whatnot. So this is really exciting. And we're going to get new signage for the front end of our where people park. Parking is going to be an interesting thing though for large events because it's really out there, and so it's going to take up miles of road if we do get a lot of people. So kind of have to work through that. Oh yeah, we also got a couple $1,000s towards scholarships from this anonymous grant for kids to go to camps. So we have 4 weeks usually. This year we're having 6 weeks, and they're almost full already. So things are really growing there, and I'm really happy about that. And the camp opportunities are there all season. Now we have forest camps in the fall. Hopefully in the winter we can start building up more presence, and spring. You know, it's 2-part. One reason we want to do this is because yes, we want to grow the center, but also the center can be host to some nefarious activities on the off season. We have to clean it up every spring with beer cans and drugs, paraphernalia and everything that is there. And so if we can get it to be more of an approachable place that has better signage and more activity, we think we can change that sort of pattern, we're hoping. It is kind of out there, so that's why it attracts that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's our update basically for our district. And then I guess you want me to jump into, so the local work groups. So we're working with Franklin and with Grand Isle together to form these local work groups to advise us on, you know, what people from the ground up want to see on private and farmland. And something kind of fell in our lap recently. I got a phone call last month about this project called Pollinator Pathways. And I'm not sure if any of you know about it, but essentially, so Pollinator Pathways is a national group. And basically it provides insight and sort of support for local groups to form. And basically for public and private pesticide-free corridors of mature plants, of native plants to provide nutrition and habitat for pollinating insects and birds, such as flower boxes, and curb strips and things of that nature. And in Vermont, you have Addison County has a group, Arlington, Burlington has a group, and I think Woodstock. But Addison's pretty active, and Addison came up to do this presentation the other night, and so I started thinking about this, and essentially it's for private landowners who want to do small projects on their land, or as they said, pollinator strips and whatnot. But then I thought about all the work that we do. So we installed a bioretention feature that had nothing but native plants in it for pollinating reasons. We put in pollinating trees that are buffer zones on rivers and lakes and et cetera. And we have programs that we're trying to push farms towards with the NRCS as well as the Agency of Ag. And I'm like, well, why can't we kind of bring this up to scale and kind of use this sort of grassroots approach? So the idea would be in Lamoille, we'd started a steering commission probably within the next couple of weeks that I'd be part of, along with any other group in Lamoille that would want to be involved with it. Find out what landowners are really interested in doing this, see what kind of landowners they are. And then from that, determine whether or not, well, maybe we can grow this into an actual literal pollinator pathway where you have adjoining landowners that want to do this, and it could actually provide, us the ability to say, hey, this could be really good for the conservation stewardship program, or this could be good for payment for ecosystem services, CSP plus, as you were speaking about earlier, Travis. Or there's a new Streamwise program. And there's already a couple people interested in doing that, and they're also interested in this. So it's sort of how I work. I try to put the pieces together and network, and that's kind of what districts do, I think, in general. And so that we're thinking that this could be, as far as a local work group goes, sort of push the idea of the buffer plantings and pollinator plantings within Lamoille County. And I think that's really where we have room to grow. And so that's, from our perspective, Lamoille County, what we could do with the local work group, some of the things that then highly rank in pollinators and woody buffers are highly ranked within that. So that's what I got.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry. Hey, so I love the idea about CSP, and I might just add local work groups are really critical to make sure that NRCS's programs are focusing on the right things. And so I think local work groups, if you have feedback on enhancements or how to, how we can improve from a practice perspective, I am all ears, always. So please keep that up. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing I failed to mention too is that this national program is a wealth of resources. So if you go to Pollinator Pathways, they just have a astronomical list of native plants and methods of planting and whatnot. And so I think they're just a good sort of resource in general, from a different sector, from a private sector, as opposed to a government sector. So I think we can tie those together. It'd be great. Any other questions? Thank you.
Hi, I always hate going after Lauren and Peter. You have to put me first next time. Okay, I'm the district manager with Grand Isle County Conservation District. I have a few small updates. So we are currently in the sort of project development phase for our sub watershed Keeler Bay Lake and Watershed Action Plan. We completed field visits this past winter. So our next step will be to sort of map out potential projects prioritize them, and then start engaging landowners to see if they're interested in bringing their identified project to 30 or 60% design. So really excited for that to wrap up this summer, and then hopefully we'll have a suite of projects to apply for funding for implementation for. And pending a few grant applications that are out right now, we hope to be leading or being a part of a lot of exciting educational events this summer and next summer around water quality. We're sort of part of a few partners' grant applications, and we submit our own through Lake Champlain Basin program. So fingers crossed that will be becoming busier. I think one of the more exciting announcements is that we are going to be growing our ag programming in the islands. Historically, we haven't had much ag programming at all through the district. And thanks to Franklin County, they are letting us borrow Kate's time, and she's going to be coming sort of on board and bring all her great expertise and services to the farmers on the islands. So we're really excited to see this side of the district grow. We had a really great collaborative meeting this week with South Carolina Land Trust and Healthy Roots Collaborative, who are already on the ground in the islands. So a lot of things in the works, and just excited to see sort of where this leads us and sort of build a lot of those connections with the farmers that we don't currently have. I sort of like Peter, I serve as the vice chair for Basin 5 Water Quality Council. They are now accepting applications, which are due tomorrow for Basin 5, but they're going to be a second round of applications opening in February. So proposed projects may include the design and implementation of practices on developed lands, forested lands, along streams and lake shores, and on farms that reduce phosphorus concentration in surface waters. We have about $500,000 of funding for this fiscal year. And the Basin Water Quality Council will be, I guess, voting on to move projects forward in our March meeting. So we've sort of got a teaser of some projects that we're going to be essentially voting on. So it'll be exciting to see some of those projects get off the ground. None on the islands for now. Most are in Franklin County. And yeah, as far as the local work groups, like Lauren said, we're hosting our third local work group in the islands in April. And looking at the surveys that came from Grand Isle residents, many of which were partners that work in the area, the priorities were sort of all over the map. In speaking with my board members, they sort of had a similar approach, couldn't really settle on one thing that we should be prioritizing for funding. So I'd really love to hear from all of you in this meeting. You can come find me in the next 45 minutes. If you have ideas, I know a number of you work with farmers there, and would love to hear sort of what you're hearing, so we can potentially explore opportunities for this local funding pool. And yeah, we may be working collaboratively with Peter and Lauren and doing something across just the Northwest zone. So yeah. Thank you.
I'm Lori Locke. I'm the County Executive Director in St. Albans for Franklin and Grand Isle counties. Excuse my voice. I have that cough that Lauren said she's had for what, 2 weeks? So voice isn't great and I'm not loud anyway. So if you can't hear me, I don't know what to do.
I'm Heather Thomas Matea and I'm loud. I'm the County Executive Director for Lamoille for you guys here in Fort Orleans, for maybe some people there. And Lori asked me to come stand up here and push these buttons, and I'm going to do that and help with any other questions. And I think there might be a connection in the same office. I would not go to that office, I would say, for the Coles.
And she's going to update on the offices that she has too.
We'll see.
We'll see, maybe. Okay. So this is our agency vision. We're a customer-driven agency with a diverse and multi-talented workforce dedicated to achieving an economically and environmentally sound future for American agriculture. So up until COVID time, of course, we're always customer driven. But especially in the St. Albans office, I think, we were finding we had our doors locked for a while. Customers couldn't come in and see us. So all of a sudden, we're dealing with everybody remotely. So farmers we never emailed before are emailing us, they're calling. We still don't have them coming into the office like we used to. And everybody knows where our office is on South Main Street, off Devon Street. There's no parking, it's hard to get there, but we still do help our customers the best that we can. That's working out fine so far.
So the thing about FSA is also within we work really close with NRCS, because if you want to get into the USDA system, yeah, come see FSA. We're the gatekeepers.
Add the customers in the
Yeah,
system.
but we let anybody in. But so most people work with us. If they're going to work with anyone getting federal dollars, they're probably going to come in and have a relationship with us too, when we're non-regulatory.
So the 860 form has become kind of important with our office. So the producer is certifying that they belong to one of the following groups. So limited resource, and they just self-certify that. Beginning farmers under 10 years, and socially disadvantaged, usually 50% women-owned or 100% women-owned. Some of our women do not certify to be socially disadvantaged because they don't think they are. Just fine. They just don't save money that way. And veteran farmers and ranchers, we have not had a lot of experience with veteran farmers in our office. Have you?
So for our programs anyhow, for the veteran to get the benefit of the veteran, to be a veteran farmer, you also still have to be a beginning farmer up to 10 years or less. So they can check that, they have to check both boxes, but sometimes to be considered veteran too, it's more than self-certifying for our program benefits. They have to provide
proof,
some kind of government form,
yeah.
Which they're already filling out a lot of government forms. So usually they can get it through being a beginning farmer.
And some of our programs, it waives the administrative fee, or you can have a higher payment limitation or a higher percentage of cost share payments. Dairy margin coverage program is pretty important for our producers. It's a dairy program that pays when the difference between the national price of milk and the average cost of feed falls below the producer selected level. Franklin and Grand Isle County, everyone's at 950 and 95%. So they're the highest coverage they can get. And they're estimating, the farmers, taking a chance when they sign up that they may get payments or they may not. The price of feed is really high right now, so haven't made payments for a couple of months, but we did most of last year. And it looks like, according to predictions, that we'll be making payments again, and that's a monthly payment that helps them on their farm. That $100 admin fee, you have to pay that every year to participate, and that's waived with that 860 form that we talked about a few minutes ago.
So the DMC, the easiest way to think about it's insurance, but we can't call it insurance because we don't sell insurance.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. So if milk prices drop or feed prices rise, then there's going to be a payment. There is a cost to the farmer. There's a premium pay buyout, but thank you, Vermont Agency of Ag. They covered it last year for farmers, and they're covering it hopefully for all of 2023. I know it's a first come, first serve, but I think that will cover most of our farmers. So there's not that risk of farmers paying in and not getting money now.
And this is just an example of what we get for a forecast from Agrimark. We kind of watch it over on the side where it's in blue. It just shows you that DMC margin. Anything that is below 950 generates a payment. Anything above 950, they don't get paid. So, I mean, it's a prediction, so it's not always completely accurate. But we use it as a tool.
Yeah, it's pretty tricky because you don't want there to be a payment because that means
No.
the milk market sucks. But at the same time, the farmer wants a payment because they put money in. So it's kind of a hard thing to explain sometimes when they don't get a payment, but we're like, that's because your milk prices are so good, which they never are so good. It's been the feed cost the last couple of years.
The livestock indemnity program, I haven't had a lot of experience with this one. It's benefits for farmers that suffer livestock deaths in excess of normal mortality. A few years ago, we had a barn collapse in Franklin County, and quite a few dairy cows were killed. Some of them were injured and later died. So we were able to get shipping records and documentation from the producer, and we're able to help them with that and make a payment. But it's not something, this was because we had blizzard conditions come through. So it had to be that there was so much snow in a short period of time that the farmer wasn't able to go up on their roof and clean the snow off. Because if the farmer gets a lot of snow and they have time to get it off and then the roof collapses, we can't help them with that. And we don't have many hurricanes. We do have winter storms.
Yeah, this is just one of the examples that so that's one of our things, is we deal with disasters in a government time. So it takes, 6 months will help you, we'll get you your money. I'm just gonna be honest about that. Our disaster programs are not quick because we are the government. But it's just an example. If something goes wrong, if you're working with a farmer and something happened, have them check with us because there might be a program they could fit into that we don't normally use.
That's another one, the livestock forage disaster program. This one is usually for qualifying drought. And although Vermont has had, and Franklin County in particular, has had very dry conditions in the last few years, we don't meet the severe drought level of D2, right? Is it?
That's one of the
severe
Ds.
D3? Yeah, so we're not meeting that. So we can't implement this program, but it's out there in case we get to that point. Should have Morgan to present this one. She's really good at this program. So the emergency assistance for livestock, honeybees, and farm-raised fish. We don't do anything with farm-raised fish, but we do have several honeybee operations in Franklin County and in Grand Isle County. So we've been to make payments to some of these producers, and it's usually colony collapse disorder. If they have a problem with mites, they're expected to use mite control to take care of the mites. Payments aren't huge, but it's a way that we can help them. So they should give us a call as soon as they notice they've had a loss of their bees. And Heather has more experience with this program than I do.
Yeah, I deal with a couple large operations, and they winter their bees in a warmer climate like we'd all would like to do. Not all of us, I know we all like to ski, but it wouldn't be bad to take a little break. So this program has worked out really well because as most probably are aware, colony collapse, well, you can't do anything about it. So the only thing we can do is help them get back up on their feet and give them some money for the bees they lost, because there's no cure, there's nothing they could do. And I've put out they seem like really large payments, and let me tell you, like when you put out $100,000, you're like, wow, that's a lot. But then think about how much they must have lost to get $100,000 from the federal government. They lost a lot. So it's just enough to get them back and going. And so we still have pollinators out there. It's not just for honeybees, but that is mostly how we use it in Vermont. I think there's been some other, there's potential for other things as these programs are constantly changing with some of that. What's that new program? The Inflation Act program.
Oh, IRA.
Some of these programs
Yeah.
are going to be changing and make them more readily available to other livestock operators.
We have the farm storage facility loan program. So in our offices, we all have a loan staff that just does farm loans. But within the program side, we do have this program, and it takes us a long time to work through this program. We have a microloan program too, so the producer can borrow up to 500,000 per loan with 15% down. And up to a 12-year loan term, and the microloan options are 50,000 with 5% down and a shorter loan term. Usually up to 7 years. Yes?
Question about this loan, sitting back in the meter in schools. You can't use this money for repairing the only side of the.
Sure.
No, you could, if it really, if it needed repair, just some people think they're like, I'd like it a little better, but there's not really a need for repair. Cause I was thinking about the program somebody brought up about quality, right? Cause if you're losing your feed because you can't scrape off the last foot of it because your bunk's all crappy. Yeah. As long as there's a need, but if you're buying in feed, we can't help you with that. It has to be, you have to grow it. So that's the basic thing with this program. You have to grow it. And it's not like our loan programs where you can't get a loan somewhere else. That's how our programs work. Our loan works is that we're not going to compete with commercial lenders, but farm storage facility loans, I'm not gonna say we're gonna compete with them, but we'll help anybody that would qualify with a private lender as well.
They have to show repayment ability, and we do work with our farm loan staff with that portion of it. In my office, we've had FSFLs for a milk bulk tank, a chiller unit for a dairy operation. We did a couple of sap tanks, the bigger stainless steel sap tanks. And we started working with a hydroponic farm on some cold storage. That one's kind of still pending. That hasn't happened yet, but we're working with them. And yours are, you have what?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be just the bunks, because that's really how we used to do, right? We all used to just mostly work with dairy farmers. We've diversified a bit. But I've done an upright sap silo, which is really interesting, bulk tank. And the interesting is like this program has opened up way up, like even like someone that's got like a refrigerator truck, we can help them with that now as well. The thing is, like most of our programs, don't get started on anything until you're approved with us, because once you start it, you're out. And I know a lot of people sometimes just don't have the patience for working with us and taking the time it takes before we can get to approval.
Yeah, it does take some time. But there's a long list. You could look on our website, huge list of things that we'll loan on. The LDP payments, loan deficiency payments. Our office has worked with sheep producers. And let's see. Their payment would be the difference between the difference a producer would have received if a loan was repaid at the lower market price. So there's different commodities. I've never worked with any other commodities in the last few years, except with wool or unshorn pelts. Not a huge program.
Yeah. Years ago, it was a huge program when corn prices were way down. This program kicked in and it was like kind of playing the lottery, because there was a different price each day and farmers would claim which day they wanted. Not the case anymore, and I doubt we'll ever see it for any commodities, but wool.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, no, we still have it for wool.
We still have
I
it
think
for
because that price, but corn, we used to see it, this program is for all commodities, but in Vermont, really is the wool, because wool is, you know, there's not a good price on wool, right? So you get, and the payments are tiny, but to some of our sheep farmers that have, even if you have, you know, 60 sheep, $200 is pretty good, right? $200 is $200. So it's worth it. It's worth them to contact us. So they have to keep it stored on farm, and let us know how much they sheared. And, you know, it's because it's really not marketable. They can't sell it for a reasonable price. That's why the money kicks in.
So the emergency conservation program can be used for different things. So we've had this for floods going through. You'll have, say, a 10-acre hayfield and it's full of all kinds of debris and silt and logs and whatever it picked up in the flood. So we'll pay have the debris removed. And the producer would give us their hours and, you know, the time that they spent and the equipment they use. So that's an easy way for ECP. What we're working on right now is ECP for Maple. So let's say Brody has a lot of experience with that, site visits. So we're paying the producers to remove the debris from their maple sugar orchards and not to take everything out, all the fallen trees and the branches, but just to get everything out of the way so that they can tap their trees. And of course, December 23rd is when the storm came through, and some of the, I think we're at 60% tapped in Franklin County right now, among like an average of the producers. You can go to the next one.
Oh, you have more than one ECP.
Is there? So this is just an example of one of the photos, and Brody has helped with this program back in 17. Yeah. And right now Sarah is heading up a group. Well, she's taken a bunch of people out to do site visits. She's planning to do a couple tomorrow. She's crazy. But she's been helping to spearhead site visits. We're up to, like she said, about 80 people right now. Calls have dwindled down. We're not getting as many calls as we were. We're also changing the way that we're paying the program. So we're kind of in a limbo state right now as far as that goes. So that's being developed. But still gathering information from our farmers, having them go out and do the work now. Normally for ECP, you wouldn't start until you've had a site visit. Well, a lot of them, by the time they called us, they already had it cleaned up. But we can still see trees were cut, work was done, limbs are down, trees are down. So a lot of documentation. So the site visits are very important. And we can help with replacement of lines and taps and tubing. Boosters, a lot of the maple sugar makers have sensors now in their woods. We can pay to replace those. So it's a pretty important program, a lot of interest and a lot of work being done right now.
Yeah, so ECP's been around forever. And we've used it for maple for the past, I don't know, 10 years, probably. Because a lot of our damage has been on maple sugar bushes. We don't use it typically for flooding because, well, it's the Lamoille around here and it floods a lot. So that's one of the things with this program. If you get the same type of damage from the same type of storm or same type of event, you can only participate in this program twice in a 10-year period. And now that's probably going to affect some of our maple sugar bushes too, because wind has a pattern apparently sometimes. So yeah, you couldn't prevent it, but it's just what it is. We can't continuously be paying on things that might keep happening. It probably would depend on our administration. I shouldn't say that. Sorry, this isn't being recorded, right?
I think it is.
Well, that's true though. No, they're hampering down on it, I think, a little bit more. But you know, the flooding makes sense, right? If you're in a floodplain and you keep having debris, well, guess every year you're going to have debris. Maybe put a buffer in, maybe not. I don't know. And again, guess how many maple producers there are nationwide applying for this program? Well, there's 80 in Franklin County. But you know, it's not as big
right now that are applying for this.
Yeah.
Damage.
ECP actually from the Storm Elliott has a name. That's fun.
Yeah.
It's most of the state of Vermont, maple producers are applying in almost every county except for maybe 2 because there was damage. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a big Storm Elliott. Like we've had wind shears come through and we can have run ECP for one farm if that's the damage they had and it qualifies.
We had a storm in July, the 21st, and we had 3 producers. So those ones just cleaned up as this one came in.
And again, it's one of those things, if you have a disaster, you're working with a farmer, working with anyone, You might not even think as a farmer, there's a disaster on their land, they should contact FSA and see if there's a program we might have. A lot of times they'll say, nope, sorry, but maybe sometimes they'll say, yeah, sign up.
And for this program, you can have one person apply and we can still run the program. So. But yeah, I don't know if we
This is a
answered
good question, Sean.
Ellie's question.
I know it is.
Talked with producers over the last 4 months. But I have two of the producers that run a 1-man people show. One of them gets injured and they no longer have the neighbors to get the lines up, fences up, whatever it is. Are there any kind of programs in that kind of see someone injured on the weird city?
Not with us, but I wouldn't be surprised if somebody in here might know something. Is there like a farm viability or agribility or something? I don't know. We will have, yeah,
But no,
No.
that's.
no. So most of ours will have to be some kind of land-based environmental issue. I want to say act of God, but that type of thing. But
Yeah.
Good question.
Restoring the cropland back to its natural state. So,
Are buildings covered?
no. Although they've been reported to us.
Yeah, buildings, and again, so what we're doing is this program is for one thing, it's like, you're producing a product and it's agriculture related, we want you to continue producing that product that's agriculture related on the land. So buildings aren't covered. We don't have any programs for buildings.
But this wind problem, so say you had a building and like a barn and the roof came off and all this debris came off with it and covered a field, a neighboring hayfield, let's say. We can, and that can be part of this program too. To remove that debris, the time that it takes and the work that it takes.
From cropland, has to be
Has to be
cropland,
cropland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so not your,
If it's a
not your,
pasture,
not your
no.
cropland.
You have to say where structures are covered?
No, no, and not to be mean, but you probably should have insurance on your structures.
Yeah, that's what we're counting.
And if you have loans with FSA, you have insurance on your structures. Or loans with anybody, I would think. Hopefully they don't have
Yeah.
loans, that'd be great, but in reality. That's why, Sarah, because it should be covered through something else.
How much money is allocated to this program? Is it like an annual thing or farm bill?
Magical pot of money. We
It's
don't know, it never
magical pot.
ends. It's amazing.
So the county committee has to request $1. Okay to say that.
Yeah, we can't, but they've never said no to us. We're adorable. So it does help. I'm not gonna, it does. And they do, there's not like, it doesn't run out. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, there's lots.
Yeah,
lots of
there's calculation,
calculations.
and one of our major ones is, we're not gonna pay, if, let's say there's a value of the land
Oh, true.
that our county committees has set, it's $2,000 an acre. We're not gonna pay more than 50% of that per acre to get the land back to agriculture, because that doesn't make sense financially, right? Yeah, and there is, the other money is you have to have $1,000 worth of damage or more.
Right.
Now, everyone's not signing up for this program in here. This is not for everybody.
No.
What's a county thing? Oh, it's another magical thing.
They're elected producers in the county that have to have some kind of agriculture that they're working on. Franklin County, we have 2 maple sugar makers. One used to be a dairy farmer, now raising beef. We have 1 active dairy farmer. One that sold their cows, was dairy, raises beef, and also has a vegetable farm, newly formed. And what's my other one? Oh, has beef and raises soybeans and corn, kind of rotates them. So they make decisions, they make approvals and disapprovals for programs. So we have 5 members in Franklin County for the 2 counties.
So FSA is unlike any other agency in the federal government because we have county committees and county committees oversee what we do. They hire Lori, people like Lori and myself.
And
They're our
They're our
bosses
boss, yeah.
and they are elected officials. And when I say that out loud, I'm like, oh, elected officials. Yeah, we're all that work for the government, work for elected officials. But not really. So they're kind of more like a district, right? You guys have a board that oversees you and hires you, but we're a federal agency and that happens. And, you know, they do get, they still have to follow the rules, all of our handbooks and all our rules and regulations, but they do have approving authority or disapproval authority. But let's say when the farmer says, I don't like the decision that was made, even by someone like NRCS, they don't like the decision that was made, then those farmers or producers can come to the county committees and appeal. And then it can go up from that. We have a state committee too, that's actually appointed. Appointed by the president. It's really a big deal. And then they oversee the county committees and everything in the state FSA does. And then that's another place producers can appeal if they don't like a decision that was made.
So county committees recently, they had to approve that they wanted to run the program. So at the last meeting last week, they said that they wanted to run this program, and the program we had in July, they gave a dollar estimate. So this is a number they come out of their head. So $200,000. That's what we want to ask for. This one, they calculated 1.75 million. So that doesn't mean we'll use that money. We won't receive that money. We don't ask for it and then they just give us that money. We have to enter the applications in our system to follow all the rules and regs about what we can pay on and what we can't. And then they'll determine how much money we'll receive based on what we request within our cost share system. Yeah.
Okay.
The non-insured crop disaster assistance program is also an insurance program. So most of the people that buy this type of insurance are maple and fruits and vegetables. There's two different, there's basic coverage, the 50-55. Usually doesn't pay all that well because you have to suffer that 55% loss and we pay you on the rest. And then the buy-up coverage, we did get quite a few maple people this year, the 65-100 coverage. So we'll see how that works out next year when they give us their production.
So NAP is like so everyone can buy crop insurance, right? So what NAP does, just what it says is non-insured crop, is there's certain crops insurance agents won't cover, and that's where this program comes in. We'll cover them not at as high as a rate, and it's obviously subsidized. They don't pay as much in. New for 2023, and actually let's retrofit it back to 2020. Anyone that filled out an 860, which would be in an SDA, automatically gets NAP coverage at the basic level.
The Conservation Reserve Program. So some of the people in this room have worked on this program. Actually, basic CRP pays a yearly rental payment to farmers that agree to remove environmentally sensitive land from agricultural production, as well as plant species that will improve environmental health. So the goal of the program is to improve water quality, prevent soil erosion, reduce loss of wildlife habitat. Contracts range from 10 to 15 years, and there's a continuous enrollment.
So CRP, you know, we don't use the straight up one as much in Vermont. We're more about the next slide, CREP, because we want it enhanced. And that's state, right?
Yeah.
So that's with our partners with the state, we get to do the enhanced one. CRP, I think we have a few general signups without the state going in, but really there's much bigger incentive to do the partnership one. Do you have some notes on that one, Lori?
Just Franklin County has 47 contracts in Franklin, and we finally last year got our first one in Grand Isle. We were very excited about that. And then we have, because the program's been around for a while, we're having re-enrollment, so people have an opportunity to re-enroll in the program. If there's a buffer area that needs more trees, we can cost share to fill that back in, get it up to where it's supposed to be. So we have 3 brand new contracts that we're working on right now. 4 re-enrollments for 2023. I think there's 6 for 2024.
Yeah, so CREP, so here water quality, this is where FSA gets to play in the water quality game.
We get to go outside.
But we don't always get credit for it. So when you see someone say, oh, thanks NRCS for CREP, you say, no, thank FSA. Because we make the payments, but it is, yeah, right, Lori. NRCS helps.
They do help.
But actually the state. And of course, the state of Vermont Agency of Ag, they're really a lot of power behind it. They've done a lot with this program. And it's a really good program. I have no idea how many acres we have across the state, but it's a lot. And a lot of people are re-enrolling after the contracts are done, which is really good. And it's definitely worth it. If anyone has any land on a river or a stream, and there's some concerns there, this is a program for them. I don't know. We don't really talk about that one much, but okay.
And over and over again. It's an easement, but not the perpetuity component of it. And so I guess I'm just wondering. Is this my answer?
No, this is your answer.
But what's not on the street?
What?
It's not on the waterway.
Oh, then CRP. So they could sign up for CRP. The problem is with CRP general sign up is you're competing across the nation. So we've got 2 acres in Vermont, and then in Wisconsin, we've got 2,000. And so and a lot of times you're bidding, you're saying, I'll take this much per acre for my contract, right? But I've got 2,000, I get, we haven't been able to compete with it well. So that's why it hasn't been financially feasible for most people. Yeah.
Are they ranked though?
No, but you kind of put a bid in. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'll take that on my land. I've got 2 acres, so I'm going to at least leave $1,000 an acre. But in Wisconsin, they say, I've got 2,000 acres. I'm going to need, you know what? Give me $100 an acre. And so that's what can happen. That's been our experience with it. However, this is the year of the new farm bill coming up. Things could change. And, everyone talks about CRP, and that's a program that's coming out for Vermont. Quite frankly, the enhancements, this program, this is where we're at because what we're enrolling is such small compared to the rest of the nation is small acreage.
This is part of why Vermont has CRP.
Yeah, well, and this just gets more money to the producer because you are giving up your land for 15 years, right? And if so it's just, maybe things will change in CRP and that would be more feasible for our smaller land base. Because the farm bills can be wild.
Because I know they have to ask anyway. Local funding pool for FSA, is that a thing?
No, we have just money.
No, we have money.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
We're like NRCS, but not as much money as NRCS, but, it's true. So our programs are all, they're farm bill based, or there's what we have the CCC, which they're our own bank. So certain programs money comes out of there. Yeah, and there is a limit on CRP and CREP of how many acres we can have, but we'll never hit it.
Close.
There was a few years ago, nationwide, we were getting close to hitting it, but a new administration came in and they raised the limit. Yeah. Oh, it's interesting stuff. You should Google it.
I think the next one is talking about.
It's just about the cost share.
And if you can explain that too.
So I feel like our payment rates for prep, are they based off of the soil type that gets enrolled in the program? And then does that have something to do with like birth rates, or how do you come up with the payment rate?
So,
Oh, the soil.
so just, there are soil rental rates, if it's cropland, and cropland has a whole definition. And usually cropland's definition would be a commodity crop for X amount of years in a certain time period, and that can change per farm bill. And we go back in time. Have a hard time staying in the present. So that can change per county, per soil type, if it's cropland. If it's pasture land, each county has its own rate. So yeah, like Addison County probably gets more per acre than Lamoille County. I know they do because I checked. And that's fine, I'm okay with that. So, you know, and that's the thing, and that can change. And every year, the national office gives us these rates and they say, this is what your soil rental rate's gonna be. And it's based on NAS data, which the 2020, which that's coming up now. Tell your farmers to enter their NAS surveys and put in higher rates, what they're really paying for things, because they're getting, you know, some really low soil rental rate. And then we have to fight it every year. And then they raise it a little bit, but it's not really relevant to what it costs to lose that land. So that's why we have the state, which kicks in too and makes it a little more of an incentive, right? And then we also have a sign up incentive payment, which gives them an X amount of dollars per acre. That initial, it's not very much money. And then bonus is if they want to plant trees, it's not going, and they really want trees there, you run a riparian buffer, because who doesn't? They're awesome. Like, right? Everyone here thinks they're awesome. We're gonna pay to plant those trees, and we're gonna find the rest of the money to help do it with Fish and Wildlife.
I was gonna say,
Fish and Wildlife helps pay
helps us
the
with
part
this
we
too.
can't pay, in most cases. So the farmer needs, they're gonna want it. It's not like, this is a good money maker for me. They're gonna want it. And maybe it's because the land trust is putting an easement on, saying that, and they're saying, you're gonna want this. And that's the other thing, before there's an easement, you have to put crap in. In a river corridor, people, they want a river corridor, they want trees, you gotta work with us first, and then they're not gonna have to pay for those requirements.
Describe what's the name. CSP, the conservation stewardship program, and our CSP program at City. It's a based off of landings, so cropland, farmstead, forestry, so we that way, different rates of land uses. And CSP is meant to sort of payment, sort of provide things to the landowner that we are already doing, meaning they don't have resources. Maybe so about them also kick in some extra tax and continue their upward management of the field. In practice, this is yeah. That's big.
Their thing with, you know, with prep is there's no double dipping, so if you're doing something on that land and it's in CSP, we can't put crap on it, or vice versa. No double dipping. Any more questions on, do we have another slide? Oh, so any more questions on crap? Okay.
And then the agriculture risk coverage, price loss coverage, like Heather had mentioned earlier, we use a lot of data from the past, so it's based on historical acreage. So we have base acres that were set up
Before most of these people were born.
a long time ago. Yep. And this program goes through many names and changes with every farm bill. So we'll see what happens at the next one. So it's an income support program that provides payments when actual crop revenue falls below a specified guarantee level. So we have ARC County and we have ARC IC. ARC IC is for individuals. We don't have any in Franklin and Grand Isle County, but we have had ARC County before. It's yield based, so it would pay based on yield, established by the county committee in those counties. And the PLC program is based on price. So when the price gets to a certain level, falls below the reference price. So it's kind of a complicated formula. Enrollment period starts October 17th and ends March 15th. The last few years, we haven't made any payments at all in Franklin and Grand Isle County. I don't know if we have throughout the state.
Yeah, so this is a big commodity program. Vermont does get to benefit when prices go. So when we say commodity in Vermont, we're talking corn. And maybe some soy, but mostly corn. So if prices really tank and corn prices have not really been tanking, this program kicks in. But out in the Midwest, they have a different, setup. They're so commodity based. The program was designed more for them, but we get to benefit from it. And again, it doesn't cost anything to sign up, so that people that have a base acre sign the contract. If something happens, they could potentially get a payment. But it's really complicated. This I would not Google. I would.
Yep. This is kind of a new program for us, the emergency relief program. Phase 1 we had a few months ago. That closed December 16th. If you had a crop insurance indemnity for your corn or soybeans, we would give you some additional money based on that information. And if you had the NAP program, that insurance, and you filed a claim and you got paid, we give you some additional money there. So we didn't have many people, I think maybe 20 in Franklin and Grand Isle County. So now we have the ERP phase 2. So this one is a tax-based certification program. We haven't even had our training yet. That's next week.
Yeah, we're moving on, Lori. We don't really.
Don't even talk about it. So producers are giving us their revenue. How did I put that? So their loss of revenue for 2020 and 2021, and they'll receive payments based on that information. We're not exactly sure how that will be calculated. And then they have to agree to buy crop insurance, usually the buy-up level, so a higher price for the next 2 years.
Yeah, we don't know how this one will roll out. This is some of that new money. I call it the leftover COVID money.
Yeah.
Then they are just trying to fill any gaps that were left open. They're trying to reach the people that maybe haven't worked with us a lot and could use the money. And that's what our programs, I think, will be in next year, is looking for those people that haven't dealt with us a lot and didn't get some of those big CFAP payments, but I don't know. These are just acronyms I'm throwing out. I could be making them up, but I'm not. And really, the people that were really working with us in the past, they got some good money through the COVID, and there's small producers that haven't worked with us and they're trying to find those. And this is one of those parts where they're trying to find that, where, hey, maybe you didn't really have that crop insurance and stuff, but maybe you did have a revenue loss. So talk to your tax consultant and talk to FSA.
This is the other part of that, the pandemic assistance revenue program. So providing assistance to eligible agricultural commodities who suffered at least a 15% loss in gross revenue in calendar year 2020 due to the pandemic, and they compare that to either 2018 or 2019. And that application period opened January 23rd. Of course, like I said, we have not been trained, so we haven't taken any applications yet in our office. And that does last until June 2nd. So how about?
And this would be, if you guys are out there talking, like really small veggie producers are people we don't really deal with as much. We were so heavy dairy for so many years that COVID did bring in some new producers for some of the programs we have, but this is looking for those folks that, maybe they really did have a 15% loss from those years because of COVID, because of whatever. But as long as they can show us that, this is something that we could help them with. We don't know what the payment rates are going to be, but money's money. So it'll be worth, it should be worth
And they
their
don't
time.
have to pay to apply.
No, it's all free.
So,
Everything's
yeah,
free.
it's free. And more questions?
would that affect?
He shouldn't tell anybody in the USDA he's growing weed on his property. Yes, no, that. It would. It's still federally, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Hemp, we're okay.
yeah, we're cool with hemp.
Anything else?
Can I talk about the record keeping work that does the whole thing about maps, all the rock records? I didn't know it was existed for probably too long. And
Yeah.
also not on the basis.
Good point. So, remember I said we're the gatekeepers? Well, we also are the record keepers. So going back before time, we've been keeping track of what people grow and where they grow it. Sounds creepy, but it's not.
We call it our bread
It's
and
a crop,
butter.
it's crop
Crop
reporting.
reporting.
And that's where they look at nationwide, besides that, they look at crop reports in our system and they can say, this is how many acres of corn are being grown, and this is how they make farm bills, because they say a lot of people are doing this here or there. But for nutrient management plans, how would you know what they've been growing and where they've been growing it for the last 10 years? Because they've reported it to FSA, hopefully, not always. How would you know if that's considered cropland for CREP? Well, because here's a crop report. There's lots of things you can do with crop reports. But you guys want to start listing them? Let's go.
And then related to crop reporting, like you said, farm and track numbers. A lot of our maple producers coming in, we have no idea what the boundaries are, the different pieces that they're reporting. So we're establishing that in our system. Luckily, we have parcel data, so that kind of helps it get our lines right, but yeah, we keep track of the CLU and make sure that everyone has a farm and track number, the fields are all outlined correctly. NRCS performs the determinations if they're highly erodible, wetlands. So we work closely with them for that.
Yeah, our mapping goes back a long time, to the 40s. And where farmers would tell us what their property was and we outlined it in a paper map, photo map. And now everything is digitized, so everybody that can have access has access to it. But our records are only as good as we know. So if a producer doesn't tell us they sold something, some people think that automatically gets updated. It doesn't, it does not. So if they sold something, or if a property changed, or if now there's, we might see it when we're looking at the imagery. If now that's a solar farm, that's stuff we need to know. Or our records won't be correct.
I've got two questions kind of related to crop reporting. One is, if you were if like a farmer was able to you were to ask, can I get my crop report records? What does that look like? What format is it in? And how easily shareable is it if the farmer gives permission for that information to be shared? And the other question is, when they make crop reports, do they just report the crop as sort of like, this is what I'm growing this year? Or do they say, I'm doing crop rotation on this piece of land for 5 years of pay?
No, it's, so first answer, my information is PDF. We can do, we can run reports. So here's all your farm, and probably people know farm and track, but here's all your farms, and here's what you grew for 2022 with a field number. Yeah, like a table, but it's not Excel, it's PDF. So it's gone across and it will give you field number, the acres, what the crop was, and if it was a commodity crop, the date it was planted. And the percentage of the operator, if they're 100% on it, something like that. And that'll be for every field. And then what was the second question? So you can't do two at a time with me.
Sorry, when they just report, do they report the
they don't. No, they don't. They don't do the crop rotation. They tell us that day. So come in. They have to come in every year. And sometimes you say you need to come in more than every year, because if you're doing cover cropping, you got to come in again and tell us when you did a cover crop. And then if we want to be really tricky, we say, and then why don't you tell us where you planted your hay if you did that at a different time. So mostly once a year, but for cover cropping, at least twice a year.
And we work with NRCS with cover cropping too. We find out which producers are participating in a cover cropping program. And then, there's others that will come in too, but we kind of share that information back and forth.
Do they come and tell you this stuff? They actually do.
If they want USDA. If they want money. Okay, yeah, we should get that in.
Yeah,
Certain programs require. it.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, they're not required to cover crop. Like they could
No.
come and apply, but sometimes it might limit them for their, what they could get benefits for later. And we call them a lot.
We
And
do.
email, and now we email them a
email.
lot,
A lot.
and then we mail them a lot of stuff. We're keeping the US Postal Service going. It's,
We're in
yeah,
contact.
there's just no requirement. Yeah,
Certain programs, like our PLC program, you
Yep.
have to file a crop report or we don't pay you.
to receive a payment, yeah.
It depends on the program. But most of them just do their reports every year. Brody's.
Well, another question is how much of your time do you take to pull those crop reports for like?
Are you asking for a crop report right now? Is that-
For like 5 years. How much time?
Not very much time, but if it's for someone other than the farmer can ask us, if it's not the farmer asking us, they need to give written permission to whoever it
To
is.
provide
Yeah,
it, yeah, that's
yeah.
quick.
It's
Yeah.
it's software, so it's, Yeah.
To work through the crop reporting process.
but if you're asking for a
it's
copy of the
time
maps and
consuming.
everything, that's going, because then we got to pull them and that takes a lot more time. But if you just need the list, that's easy.
But actually farmers.gov has an place where you can go to sign up to get your own maps. You could find,
Right, but it won't be
Yeah.
written for with the crops on them.
it won't have the crop reporting information we have.
I don't have any farmers signed up for farmer.gov yet, but we'd like that.
Yeah. Keep us in business.
No, I think you get one more, Brody. Anyone else? Good, thanks.
Thought we were gonna be half an hour.
Oh, yeah. If people want to go and move their bodies for the next 6 minutes, then we'll get a team ready. Here's Dean Pierce, who is the, I actually don't know what your title is.
I'm a senior planner at the
The senior planner. And also the staff on the Missisquoi and Memorial Clean Water Service Provider, which is the new, it's lots of things. I'll let you talk about what they are. But thank you for coming and please pass any questions.
I realize I'm holding people from, I don't know, I'll get it known, so we can try to fly through things, but I apologize if I seem like I'm rushing. But just a little bit about me, grew up in Franklin County, on a farm, I has never been in the conservation district world, per se, or the CBS world, but I've worked with them, so I have some idea of the kinds of things that we do. Did it earlier in my life, gotten back to it in the last couple of years with the job change. I hope I don't seem, too casual with some of the stuff, but I just thought, hey, why are we here? Right? I also have to say, I wasn't exactly sure who the audience was, so I'm kind of adjusting since I made this lines. But I don't want this to seem salacious, but part of the reason we're here, or that I'm here, is because of problems like what we see here. Water quality in Lake Champlain. Pictures like this can fan the flame somewhat. So I try to lighten it up. I want people to understand that, yes, there is a problem, but some of what I'm doing is looking at problem solving in a new way. And I latched onto this idea of taming the phosphorus monster, because I thought we have to talk in different ways about some of these problems. So anyway, this is what I got when I started playing around with that artificial intelligence image generator. But more significantly, the Lake Champlain TMDL is the math basically and modeling that is quantifying the magnitude of the problem and what it is that we have to do to make regulators like the Environmental Protection Agency happy with us. And this is a chart that shows in absolute terms phosphorus levels, the baseline around 2015, 2016 through 2036. And the message is we have to reduce a lot. And I'm sure all of you knew that, but this is just driving home the point. And the modeling theoretically shows that there are different sectors that contribute to this problem and will have to contribute to the solution. And that modeling may or may not be a load of crap. You can take the numbers now and you can present them in different ways, what our initial level is, what the end result is, and there are much of the solution that not one sector has to address this problem alone. There is a sector that has to do with those who are regulated, and they're seen as contributing to the solution. But the world that I'm in is in this new non-regulated, essentially voluntary realm that isn't agriculture. So regulation, agriculture, non-regulated, mostly non-agricultural. And I thought that part of my job here was to talk about, I work in a new program, so we're still making stuff up as we go along. And I'm talking about the part of that program that I've dealt with the least and know the least about, and was trying to get someone else to be the speaker because they really know, and I'm just the JV. But here I am. So I'm going to talk to you more specifically about where the program that I am involved in can be used in agricultural settings. Before I do that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Act 76. It's one of the laws that set the stage for this. It's not the only one. The second one, what did it do? It provided a long-term funding source. It prioritized funding for these voluntary, this non-regulatory realm, and it created or set the stage for creating this system, this network of what are called clean water service providers and related bodies called basin water quality councils. I gotta say, whoever was thinking about this, their heart was in it. The idea, people have seen these kinds of things in government, lots of places, this idea of devolving decision-making, and I don't have a pointer here, but you can see it. One model is the states at the middle, and it sends out, you interact with the state because things are centralized. This is from an article that a now former UVM professor wrote that I think really caught the attention of some people in DEC. And they took this idea that this modeling effort showed that decentralization of decision-making actually makes sense. So their heart was in the right place. What's happened, just to editorialize a little bit, is that we're pushing money out. There are a lot of requirements, and dang, if there aren't so many guardrails, that the path forward really gets narrow with all of these guardrails that we have to live with in order to try to have this decentralized system. Just in terms of the geography, I wasn't sure the territory of everybody who's going to be here, but I've done that successfully. So all of the Lake Champlain Basin, and I don't have this so I can zoom out, but in Vermont, within the Lake Champlain Basin, there are planning areas, planning basins that are part of this program. And the organization that I work for, the Northwest Regional Planning Commission, is the only organization that serves as the clean water service provider for more than one basin. And we are this administrative body for the Missisquoi and the Lamoille. I have the North Lake here because it's just so hard to separate these things. That basin is essentially staffed through the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission. But I'll try to answer a question today. But we cover a pretty significant area, and we cover an area in the Missisquoi that is seen as contributing a big part of the phosphorus loading problem. I should say that those graphics that I showed you earlier, I won't bother to go back. That was the modeling specific for the Missisquoi. It's maybe not the best example, but maybe it is, because the problems in the Missisquoi are about the worst. But that's the geography. What's our role? We create partnerships with groups and landowners we help support these policy bodies, these new entities called Basin Water Quality Councils. We try to identify and get projects that will reduce phosphorus done. And this is where things get even more interesting. We will have a role as the verifiers / inspectors and monitors of projects over time, because the state doesn't want to direct this money to getting projects done and then have them not be maintained. So funding for operations and maintenance will be made available, but there still is this need to make sure that the operation and maintenance gets done. And so the QUISP have that responsibility. We've got some planning and other activities and areas as well, but I'm going to gloss those over. I'm going to try to put a little bit finer point on it. So we had this roughly 60% reduction in phosphorus. It's parceled out to these sectors, a lot of math done, blah, blah, blah. And using this formula that DEC has created, it means that about $1.6 million of funding would be available within the Missisquoi. It's about 650,000 within Lamoille. So not an insignificant amount of funding, and that's an annual figure. It's a little bit squishy because the amount of money that's appropriated will change over time. And basically our targets, and we have signed contracts with the EC to meet targets. And so that's why I'm kind of proselytizing here, because I want to get projects done. It's to hit our targets. Our targets will go down if the amount of funding goes down, but in theory, they'll go up if the amount of funding goes up. And just to explain this further, if you do the math, we're looking at about 145 kilograms of phosphorus reduction per year on a sustained basis. And that doesn't even get us to our real target, the one that is in the TMDL, but it's a pretty substantial amount of phosphorus reduction. Okay, trying to move things through to the end. Again, the focus is on non-regulatory projects, and they're of diverse types. Stormwater practices on roads and places in village settings where it's not subject to a 3-acre permit, it's not an MS4, floodplain restoration, riparian buffers, wetland restoration, forest land conservation, and it can include projects on farms and farm settings. And like I said, I'm not the expert on this. And anyway, so there's a form for that. Let me stop for a second. Any questions at the moment? If not, I'm going to keep going. Okay, so, and there's a form for that. So this is a system. I mentioned guardrails before. Maybe we will, someone will write the story or the book about this program. And if they are really not liking it, they might say that we've, formalized it to death. I don't know. But to fund agricultural projects, it starts with a question. And the question is the proposed project located on a jurisdictional farm operation, one that's required to meet the RAPs, the RABs? So, and I'm guessing people know what that is. Any case that requires, and I'm reading here, any case that requires consultation with AAFM will occur via a farm determination process. So basically, that's why I'm saying there's a form for that. That's a farm determination form, and you submit it in order to get a process starting. So if we're not talking about a jurisdictional farm, something that's not a small farm or above, a homestead, well, then we can have a conversation about a wider range of projects. But if it is a jurisdictional farm, the guardrails get tighter. So the question would then be, is it an agricultural project? Because if it's an agricultural project, QUISP funding, no, can't tap the $1.6 million that I have, go to talk to somebody else. But a natural resource project, or I've quoted the language, natural resource, innovative, or other project type are potentially eligible. But you can't just come to me and say, hey, I'm a farm, I'm jurisdictional, but I've got a natural resource project for you. We're going to have to say, we have to make sure that your logic is agreed to by ag food and markets. And you can see, and yeah, you can see the wording. I apologize in my email to Lawrence. This is tech heavy. I'm guessing people know this already because you deal with it, but you know, farm determination, there's the income component, the area component, there's the number of animal units component. This is stuff that's been around since the late 1980s or something like that. But basically we have to, you know, we have to consult, the food and markets has to consult this list in order to determine whether or not it's a farm. So who is left? Again, I just sort of see this in two baskets, the homesteader types who are really kind of below the radar or down low, and projects on farms that aren't related to your agronomic practices. I've got some screenshots here. There are not only forms, there are spreadsheets and tables. And this is part of a spreadsheet that is an appendix to a policy, and I'm not making that up, that spells out project types, what funding programs can pay for those, and what the definition of that project is. If you were to pull up the spreadsheet, any place where you see formula is me. So for the homesteader, it's not, it's possible to do an ag project because it's not in conflict with the RAPs. But you know, there's also this issue where that area factor where, oh, 4 acres and above, or 4 acres and below, if you're doing something that might be bad for water quality. So in the end, I don't know how many projects on in farm settings or farm types that we will ever end up doing. But the early discussions of this program talked about roughly 10% of the amount of money that goes to each basin being possible for farm work or farm setting. So anyway, that's the picture for homesteaders, farmers, river corridor, wetland easements, wetland easement implementation, wetland restoration. You know, there are these things that aren't related to farming or the agronomic practices. I won't bore you with this, but if somebody's really interested in seeing it, I'll see that you get the link. Now, Peter, who I should just mention, is the chair of one of these councils, so he's playing, and that's very, very helpful. But he mentioned that the applications for this funding, the very first one, they're on the street. So we put out calls for projects. The RPC website link is on the screen, but if you just go to the RPC website, you will find it. And we have a call for applications, which is basically the announcement, and we have an online application form. And the thing about the application form is that it's wrapped around or written around the policy that DEC has issued and signed the new version of in December that spells out all of the stuff that we have to do. So it's more complicated than it was when I started it, because when I started developing the form, the new policy wasn't out. But it's gotten longer, but we hope that it's as simple as possible. And you get the ball rolling by filling out the application. Now, if you're doing an ag application, it's going to be a little bit more complicated. And I will say that we should probably talk one-on-one if that's something that you're serious about doing. We got the call for projects in the Missisquoi out a week ahead of the one for Lamoille, and we're giving people 6 weeks because we felt like that was a much fairer amount of time than one of our sibling organizations. I just wanted to talk a second about partners. We can't do the work that we do without the cooperation and involvement of partners, and they include conservation districts, watershed organizations of different types, towns, land trusts, and so on. And this is contact information, and we really could have combined 2 of these columns because it's the same. It's me, Lake Champlain Direct, is Dan Albrecht at the Chittenden County RTC. And that's where I'm going to stop and answer any questions or let people go home. Yeah.
If I understand it correctly, it's This program is available to farmers who want to implement practices that would reduce phosphorus as long as that's not directly related to agronomic practices that might be required of all. Correct.
Well, yeah, so, yes, so one thing I might say is that it's probably not only that farmer. I think that in the majority of cases, a property owner who is in something that will create an organization, conservation district, and my guess is that organization. Farmer could make the application, and as part of the application, we would need to have an application that's going to, you know, through the process, of doing it. Well, initially, I'm not going to. I mean, there will be more. There will be dollars. So, yeah. So there's an element of possibility. This program isn't just bringing money around, but the idea is that the organizations that are part of it are spending money cost effective. But it's an important thing. So if I want projects, I would want to see that will cost effectively. Yeah, that's, I'm not afraid for me to do it.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on what you're saying too, is that I think we're looking for projects that are primarily buffered. Whether they're stormwater or river or whatever it is. And so from a district perspective, when we're looking at a project, I'm gonna be like, okay, so this is a clean water project, but is this more of an enhancement? Is this more of a project that increases wildlife or something of that nature or aquatic passage? And then I'll be like, you know what, maybe this won't get ranked as high, so I'm gonna put that under the enhancement grant. So those are kind of where it forks off in the DEC.
Yeah.
If you're thinking about clean water project, I would go, it is strictly like phosphorus loading, totally go for this grant. But if it's something that has a lot of other co-benefits that maybe outweigh that phosphorus element, then go for the enhancement grant round. That's going to be rather than kind of trying to tell people.
Yeah.
At least we're working watershed.
Yeah, it's a really good. Okay. I've been. Now, what I've understood is that those programs are behind that likely move into the first round. We might end up administering multiple types of some session and I'll say, oh, here we have phosphorus one. But for now, you guys are welcoming because our units in the state are not making reasonable progress or meeting the targets. I'm fine to take that. Because I think we're being paid.
I'm gonna look at the border wetland. I'm gonna look at probably ditch and stream networks and see if they need a 2-year ditch or if they need something like that. Is what I'm looking at, whether or not that is fun with you, but we'll find out. But that those are the projects to really got moving through versus like 2 lines.
And the other thing I think that is talk about phosphorus protection. You do an application, you would start doing it for talking. You would get to this point where you see, oh, there's a preference to this phosphorus. Anything phosphorus. So whatever application you're doing, you're using these tools to do an application. And so it's, you know, you are to view the agency approach that I offers. That's number. You might have somebody who has an idea and they start to use the program. Okay. I'm not gonna worry about this one. Yeah, it's or it's over.
Are there payment, oh, sorry. Are there payment rates associated with specific practices, or is it based off the amount of phosphorus reduced for that practice?
Okay, so this is maybe a little switchy. So there is a database of information about costs of different. I think it goes to 20. Put out a date, and we're already discussing about trying to factor up this. So there are these reference costs for projects that the CRIS are supposed to look at in order to make a judgment about what the cost effective is. So it's not a stereo, it's not a firm set of numbers that we absolutely must put in, but it's in that direction. Look at people at my peers are seeing this differently. Some are seeing it kind of really hard. I'm not, because there's no way that we can say, oh, your application calculates out and it's more than this. Yes.
So I think as Dean explained, you know, a lot of this comes from an active legislature, a lot of the legislature. Take and making things confusing and simple, sometimes hard to make it as simple as we like. We're all doing our best on that. One thing that I do want to talk about though is a little bit about how some of this works and why it is. So with the agricultural practices, one of the things all of us hear all the time in our work is there's too many options out there for farmers. Too many funding plots, too confusing, we can't figure it out. With this, we're doing our best to try and make it as clear as possible what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's exactly what you're asking. So Lauren gave a couple great examples of what you can do before. But one of the reasons why this process is as step by step as it is to ensure that other funding sources are considered first. So NRCS, we focus on a lot of money. We don't want to be taking work away from you by any means. Same thing with the agency of ag. We want to make sure that those funds are used as best they can. But there's some instances that fall through the cracks, and that's what we're trying to address here. The river corridor, the river restoration projects, the vector restoration projects, where there are opportunities to do some of those on farms that would fit into this. The other really key thing too is the non-jurisdictional farms. That term non-jurisdictional, as being said, low to small farms. Those little guys, those little ones that we all have to pass on the road, we wish to God we could do something. 3 or 4 horses and a whole barn of towards the water. Could have been water very quickly. We don't have opportunities for fixing those problems in a lot of cases. They don't rise to the level of NRCS. In some cases, they might not be eligible for some state funds. And they're also sometimes challenging to deal with and need a partnership approach, especially in the conservation business too, the local partner. So those smaller ones, sub-jurisdictional, are also a really key part for these reaching out to. So I really encourage you guys to think about where you can put some of this more, and clearly are already, you're in the middle of thank you folks so much for that. Because there's so much opportunity to fill some gaps here. And so thank you. Appreciate it.
And if you have questions, just about it, creative vision, we're on all the calls. Or some cut, no, you gotta talk to him.
Wow, so I see you have a bit at lines 5, 6, for the further areas. What kind of outreach have you done or have you been able to talk to each of the areas for the applications?
Well, we are doing this for the first time. So we've done every municipality, every constitution, every one organization. See what they get. We are not doing the last 2 individual properties, but we're finding that we get it's bigger, not necessarily the best word, problem. But if we get into bigger or this, then maybe that will go. But we're trying to do, yeah, yes, yes, definitely. So yeah, we on 3 towns and then like retailers. And the other thing I could say. Our region is spread out and great, which is hard to sum out. So we spill over into the northern NVDA region. So we're leaning on NVDA to do outreach to the towns they have that are this way. We're leaning on the people are plenty of opinions to reach out to this. So we're not region. But I would love, I said, but this has to become more a movement. And I've been a little bit frustrated about getting new meetings that need to cover it. I do, that's something. I appreciate what I'm saying. There are things that we put down and some of the things that we've done. We're gonna have to say, if we're gonna leave the targets, if we're serious about leaving the targets, we're gonna have to be a little less conservative about uploading because we have the money. So my view of this is that we're gonna have to, it isn't very long, and it has to be more of a movement. Means things like pushing as hard as I can for us to be able to offer economic incentives for people to do this in a way that can be really some experience, because it can be limited to the one sector. If we as a state and it's entirely plan that these benefits, then we're not holding people that are regulated, we give people an incentive to allow us to use the land for private use.
Honestly, this money isn't going away either. We've had at least multiple rounds.
Yeah.
Regularly, so it's not a one step every year. In theory, approach, I'm gonna be working, it's be just once a year.
Yeah, the idea is, I mean, I got this question yesterday. It'll be multiple requests. How many? I don't know. People have suggested you should be able to make an application anytime. I don't know if it'll be able to, but in terms of timing, yeah, I would say that the current model more or less is in the last working time. But it's really supposed to go through 20. Because that's a period. If you gotta leave, don't worry about leaving.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And maybe on that note.
Thank you, Dean.
Was this on Zoom?
Yeah, that's recorded too.
Oh, okay.
Mel's also taking notes.
Okay,
You're fine.
I just was thinking, geez, like, you mean I got a Zoom?
No, you could not have. All right, everyone, thank you very much for coming today. Really appreciate it. Hope it was worth your time. If you have any suggestions for our next meeting, please let me know. I think it's gonna be this is the end of this grant, but I'm pretty sure there's gonna be another one, so check your inboxes. Also, if you have new staff, please make sure I have their contact info in the directory. So we all have their info, so that there's some new faces here. And I was informed that the St. Louis Historic Museum needs a new executive director. So if you know of anybody with fundraising experience, send them here.